Go, just go.
We're ready.
So we're on the second pillar of communication, and last week we talked about the nonverbal communication, different ways to talk about that and communicate with our dogs. And this week we're going to again continue down our communication path, but today we're going to talk about all the tools that are out there that we have to communicate. And the biggest thing that I get from clients is the negativity that they read online about it, and then they're so against using any tools, where what happens with those and a lot of the times is that they're used inappropriately, and so they cause damage and they cause undue pain or excessive amounts of food that's not working, and the dog eventually has no desire to work for the food. So, you know, I tell people all the time, you can find negative reviews on everything out there, and really when we're talking about a way to communicate with your dogs as it relates to tools, that they're used inappropriately. And so my biggest passion for this is, if you're going to use tools, then you need to get professional help, or at least talk to somebody professionally, not talking to somebody who sells the product, but somebody who has experience in it. And brands are a big deal. I mean, it depends on what brand you use across the board, no matter what it is, if it's going to work for your dog or not. And some brands, as simple as, you know, everybody wants to just go with an easy pull harness. There are so many different designs that some of them the dogs slip right out of, and then all of a sudden you don't have a dog. And others just don't fit right, and it's causing the dog to be uncomfortable in certain areas. And so, you know, we're not even talking about just shock collars or bark collars. I'm talking about the things that people use for their dogs, from the Easy Walk harness to the head collars to, you know, to shock collars, to the slip leads, to prong collars, to crates even. And they can be damaging if not done correctly. So you can read everything out there, but it's really important to get help with an appropriate person, not just somebody that works at the store that's selling them. They have their reasons why they purchase, you know, what they purchase, but they're not out with boots on the ground using those tools to help explain to people how to use them, or even what they are. Sometimes I'll send people to go get things, and the people at the store don't even know what it is, and I'm talking them, you know, through it. So that's why tools are a big part of communication, and what I want to talk about today. So let's kind of get rolling and talk about all the tools that are out there that we use for dog training. Michelle, go ahead and start naming several.
Just in general?
Yeah.
I mean, well, we talked about shock collars. There's the Easy Walk harness. There's the no pull collar, or like head halters. Every slip leashes I would count as a tool.
Yep.
We talked about food last week. That is a huge tool that most people use.
Yep.
Prong collars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think outside of the box of just walking now.
Yeah.
I know I'm just like stuck on walking.
Yeah. Melissa?
Targeting,
Mm-hmm.
like targeting tools that you use,
Mhm.
crates, clickers, flags,
Mhm.
communicating with the flag. I'm kind of
Okay.
stuck.
Shannon?
Well, I know you used the spatula
Mhm.
before
Oh, yeah,
as a
I did.
tool.
Mhm.
We set up a pulley system in my yard as a tool to
Uh-huh.
train Louie
Uh-huh.
to do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Anything in that you have that you can have available to
Mhm.
you, if you can be creative about it, you
Right.
can use it as a tool. You've used stickers
Yep.
before as a tool. You can use a bath mat as a tool,
Yep.
a blanket, a shoe, anything that you think, oh, maybe if I use that.
Uh-huh.
And that's the thing, is you have to be open-minded to what you can use, because really your imagination is your limit of how you can communicate with your dog, if you like find the joy and the fun
Yeah.
of trying to learn how to communicate with them.
I appreciate that statement, Shannon, because I feel like as trainers, and you know, the WS way is so custom that we get really creative with things. We are not in the box of just using a shock collar, and we use the shock collar completely different than any e-collar, e-touch, whatever you want to call it out there. We use it completely different than most. If we want to call it clicker training, we get creative on. You don't have to have a clicker in your hand to mark it and still use words, but it's the same concept. And so we really do get creative, from boxes to furniture to, just sounds even that we're using. Our voice is really big for us as far as, and our body is another tool that we use, and we really get creative about helping the dog be successful with those tools. Michelle, how can a crate go south?
Oh, I mean, how can it not? Like
Yeah.
that sounds like it always does, and it doesn't. There's so many ways that a crate can go south. I mean, just anything from you as a person putting your feelings on it and making it a big deal. Like that will totally mess with your dog's mindset and how you put them in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like just even if you're asking them, if you're shoving them, if you're throwing food in, and I'm making it sound like the shoving it is the wrong part of it, and actually like babying them into it is usually the harder thing for dogs.
Yeah.
So putting treats in there, being cute about it and stuff like that. Stop making it a big deal.
Yeah. Yep. Just put them in there. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some really, really sad stories. We had a dog a few years ago that his owner died, and he was in his crate for, it was like 48 hours or something before anybody found him.
Yeah.
And he was terrified of his crate after that. And I mean, you can't blame him for that. Like,
Right.
it was awful. Like,
That was a source of death for him.
yeah, and he was fully crate trained before that, and it was really awful for him. So, I mean, that's a pretty extreme version of how a crate can go south.
Yeah.
But
we rehabbed him into his crate.
right. Oh yeah. It took a while, and it was hard. It was really hard on us because we were putting emotion on it.
Yeah.
Because we were feeling bad for him.
Yeah.
Like it was hard.
So
it was,
hard.
and his new owners were too. Like
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
It was difficult. So, I'm even thinking of my own dogs, and I really do want everybody to know that like we as trainers screw up sometimes too. Like.
Sure.
And I think back and stuff, and Rambo has never liked his crate ever, like ever. It's just and I think back about it, and I think the reason why he didn't like it was because we did put so much feelings on it because we weren't supposed to have him,
Right.
so he had to be crate trained. Like it was like you have to go in there, you have to be quiet. Like it was. So at night we'd let him out because we were like, you cannot cry, like we panicked and stuff.
Yep.
But it's funny now that like at this point our dogs' crates are just open, our older dogs. Rambo goes in crates all the time now.
Yeah.
Like just within the last like 3 months,
Yeah.
he'll just go in there and lay down. I'm like, and it's so weird and so awkward for me and Brandon. We're like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Like, and he's just in there like he's just in there sleeping.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So even us putting our emotions on it, like even today, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very strange.
Yeah, exactly. As Chris interrupts our video, photobombing,
We have to do a model walk out.
could you please, as our
Do the
photographer
spin.
heads out the door? Yay! Happy shooting. Okay, you should probably leave now.
See ya.
Little commercial break there. And I'm just going to jump into how creative we are. A lot of times, we'll use our spouses as tools to either be a distraction, or we've had several dogs that have had some really issues with men that all of a sudden now our husbands are the tool, and we're teaching them and trying to figure out how we're going to get this dog past the man thing. So there you go. There's one of our tools that just walked by.
I actually had a lesson yesterday that I used Nick. So this dog does not like the doorbell. A lot of dogs kind of whatever. But this dog, so I had Nick when he was off of work. I was like, hey, honey. So I gave him the address, and during our lesson, he would come in, knock on the door, ring the doorbell.
Yeah.
And he kept doing it multiple times. He was just reading in the car.
Yeah.
And every 10 minutes, he'd come in and ring the doorbell.
Nice.
And it was just super fun to have that tool.
Right.
My husband's a tool.
Yeah.
And ring the doorbell. Because the dog didn't know him.
Right.
because when I ring the doorbell, the dog's like, who's here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oh, I think when we have boarders, Brandon is much. He's a really amazing tool to have because
Yeah.
Brandon is pretty dog savvy at this point, but he's not like he doesn't do this every day. Like he does it in a more of a squishy way than I do. Like I just like at this point, you know what I mean. It's very like, okay, it's time for your crate. It's time for you to come out. And he's not like that. So it's really nice to have Brandon as a tool to see actually where that part of the training is coming in. Is like when Brandon goes outside, the dogs are outside. How are they reacting to him after we've been training for a week? You know.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, having a husband that really likes dogs but is not like in it is a really big tool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, especially having them like, hey, can you go take this dog for a walk?
Right.
Real quick, I want to see how they act.
Yeah. Yep.
Because the dogs read us so well. They're like, I'm done with, like, I'm going to be good with you, but I want to see how they are with someone else.
Yeah. Shannon, from you're the non-trainer every day, and we just randomly throw things your way. What are some of the things that you've used in the house, and how does Mike, now that we're just on the husband topic because it's just fun, how do you use Mike in the house with random dogs that we have thrown your way? But also, how does the tools that you have transfer into when you just randomly? I mean, because we do just randomly, all of a sudden they're with you for a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like you have any relationship with them. But what tools do you start using immediately to help with that? And then how does Mike play into that?
I have all the same tools that you guys do, and I'm trained in the same method that you guys have. And so no matter what dogs are in my house, like I know what you've been doing with them, so I just try to stay consistent with it. And sometimes it's an experiment when they're with me. You just don't tell me anything about the dog, and we just see how it goes. So I have dogs that have been like extremely afraid of everything, or have problems with certain things, and we just see, like I just try to stay consistent with what I think you've been doing, and we just see if they just follow along or if they have a problem. So keeping consistent with routines in their crate and taking them on walks with the same kind of leash that you guys have, or using the same discipline for behaviors that they're in for, like barking at nighttime or things like that. So, and then Mike just will go with the flow. He's been around now enough dogs that if I'm like caught up somewhere, I can say, hey Mike, will you let these dogs out? And if I tell him which ones to let out together, or which ones can't have food or whatever, he'll follow the instructions and just carry on so that it stays consistent with what everyone's doing. And then it's good for, another person that he's not as mean, as strong as me. And so it's good to see a person that isn't really overpowering if the dog will take charge with him, or if he can maintain the control, because he has more the same energy I feel like an owner would have. And so Mike's like the owner test. Will you still be good for someone that's not really enforcing the rules, or will you backslide? So
no, I think that's great. So super fun there. I just, again, the tools that are out there, I mean, it's never ending for us. We're constantly, we can walk through somebody's house and know exactly what we're going to use and how we're going to use it, and it's very random. I'm constantly watching, like, where's the spot for the dog at the front door? What's the porch like? What can we set some boundaries on the front porch?
And some people's houses you have to get super creative.
Yeah. Or some people don't want their dog in a certain area, and so what tools are we going to use to, not have the dog, or the dog never gets to go upstairs, and that's fairly common. It's really common actually. Where they want the dog to stay on the main level. And so how do you create that family unity when bedrooms are a part of living, pretty heavy a part of living, and so helping the dog, know that this is their space and that they're okay in it as well. Some other tools, I tell you, I have, I just finished with one client, and I left almost in tears, in a way that I was just so thrilled with what she has done. And I've never had a client that has done this. And so she has a King Charles, And we all know that potty training a King Charles is possible, but it may take you 2 years to get there. And then
you might still have an accident.
Exactly.
Prudence is 10,
right.
you know.
You still
Not very often, but
yeah, right. So she is in a senior living environment, and so it's community eating. She's got her little kitchenette, and she's got her kind of studio house kind of thing in there, and she her one room is an office, and she has set up a little playpen because there's no yard. She's not completely steady on her feet to the point that walking is something that she does every day. More than anything, she just wants to walk around the halls and really greet and enjoy the people that are there. And so she's gated off this one little area, and she's got her grass and her kennel, and then her playpen area on a vinyl floor. And I tell you what, this little King Charles, she will stop whatever she's doing and run into that little space and use the grass. Like, it never fails. So now we're trying to transition her into the rest of the house, so she can be in the office and still be contained without having to be forced in her play area. And so now we're transitioning out into where can she sleep out on a bed in her bedroom? Can she acknowledge that there may be another grass pad in her restroom? And will the dog transfer? Now I need to run into the office, into my playpen, onto the grass. So we're really working on that, but hands down, like these first 6 weeks, if Katie is in that office, she will run into her room and go to the bathroom, and it's just like we have had zero error, and she's just stayed consistent. But she's used the tools creatively, and so we talk about texture. You need to leave the vinyl down when we take the playpen down, so that she feels the different texture. Oh, this is where I need to start heading to my grass, and so she's used tools to get this, and I think she's got a dang good chance at making this happen. And so I feel like if a senior citizen who's 80 plus can stay consistent, then so can we. And one might say, well, she doesn't have anything else to do. She actually owns a business with her children and is a very successful entrepreneur, and she's done it. She doesn't worry about leaving. She leaves the dog, and she's just stayed consistent with the tools, she just really just has used the tools that I've recommended, but also she's gotten creative with what she thinks makes the most sense to help her dog be successful. And so it's possible to do anything if you get creative with whatever's out there, but staying consistent is the most important thing. What are some of the failures, Melissa, that you find with people with tools and them failing with the tools?
I think the biggest thing I see is when people try to be like other people. So when they say, oh, my friend Barbara uses this tool, this is what she has for her dog, different breed, different age, different gender dog.
Yeah.
And I want this. This is what the cool fad is. Like the training fads are a big thing that we see a lot.
Yeah.
And I think you can't put your dog into that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You have to think about what works for your dog. Another thing I see is when people try to be too elaborate right in the beginning. So like having, trying to think of something like, so when the doorbell rings, what does your dog do? Cooper has a pretty elaborate system that she does, but we started 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and so when people are like, I want my dog to da-da-da-da-da, and there's this expectation, and if your dog doesn't reach that, then I quit. It's no. Or my dog doesn't like treats, so like you can't train them. That's just not how they communicate. And so not giving up, and don't judge your dog or think your dog is stupid because they don't understand a tool. Maybe they just don't like that way of communicating. Just like us, like if some people talk to me a certain way, I'm like, nope. So don't take it personal. Don't try to be like your neighbor.
Yeah.
Because then you will fail.
Yeah. Good. Michelle, what about you with people that you find either you've gone in and they've like, oh, we've tried this and we've tried this and we've tried this and we've tried this trainer and we've done this, versus, you know, things that you've introduced as well?
Just on to like add into what Melissa was saying, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're asking me, honestly, but is people using the tools straight up wrong?
Yeah. Yep.
Just straight up, like, and I'm talking not the creative stuff. I'm talking your shock collars, your pinch collars, everything to even down to like your Easy Walk harnesses and stuff like that. You are not communicating with your dog correctly with a bark collar if they're on it 24/7. You're not. Like, that is not the purpose of that tool.
Yeah.
It should not be on your dog for life. Because you're not really training your dog at that point.
Yeah.
Like, you stopped. So, like, that's just a Band-Aid.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And I've seen dogs be burned really bad by shock collars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's brutal and it's disgusting, and that's what gives those shock collars bad names. But you shouldn't have your dog on a shock collar all the time.
Right.
And there's no reason to have it up really high. Most dogs, I think my new one goes up to like a 15. I haven't got it past a 3 yet.
Yeah.
And that is pretty normal. Like,
right.
I think I got it up to a 5 with one dog, and then I brought it back down to a 3. But people just straight up using them wrong. Crates. People are using them wrong.
Yeah.
They are punishing their dogs in their crates. And we've talked about that before. I'm not saying you can't use the crate as a discipline, but you shouldn't be like beating your dog while it's in the crate, or you know what I mean. Like, there's some stuff that it's so. We've seen head collars, people yanking on their dogs' necks, and it just makes me cringe. Like, you're like, what are you doing? The prong collar really is meant for the dog to self-correct itself. You shouldn't be doing a whole lot.
Right.
And you'll see people yank their dogs around with those, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So just people straight up using those tools incorrectly.
Yeah, and they fail.
Yeah.
And you know, on the same note, as far as carrying on to, on this path, is if it doesn't work immediately, then all of a sudden they're switching tools, and they'll go from extreme to nothing to extreme to nothing, and then it leaves us really like you have to start all over. We have to recondition everything, and so sometimes it takes time for a tool to work, to sink in, for you to stay consistent. If you're not consistent, the tool's not going to be effective. So it's important to, one, become educated, not online educated in a way that you're looking for all the negative, but become educated on, how do I use this? I mean, I bought an Easy Walk harness for a client. I will use them a fair amount for my senior citizens that aren't as stable. Those harnesses for the little dogs tend to do well, you know, and it's different for everybody. But so I went and bought one, and we had a lesson, and I watched on a how to size it video, how to make it fit, how does this thing work, so that I knew what I was up for, because it was a different one than what I had used before. I wasn't looking for how does it not work, what's the problem. It's just show me some videos on how to make this fit, how does it go on, and the way it was designed. And I think that's a better way of educating yourself on the tool, is how does it work? How do I fit it to my dog so it will correctly work? These things are all designed to fit correctly, and then they will work, not for all dogs, but they will work. Like, if it works for your dog, it will work. And so it really is, stop hunting for the bad, because everything's bad. I mean, even for us, everything can be bad, right? It's like, as crazy as it sounds, you know, we're all in sweatshirts. Some days, that's a bad thing. It's hot. We don't want to be in a sweatshirt, right? But sweatshirt's a good thing. So, I mean, you can really find bad in everything. And I think that we as a society need to start finding what works, what tools are out there. How does it work? What's the good in it? What were they designed for? And even the clicker stuff, I see people using it so wrong, but it's designed to be good. And really, a clicker should work for every dog. Really, if it's used correctly, may not be for every dog, but it will work. And so if it's done the way it was originally thought up to be used. And that's just with every tool, is how is it designed to work, and will it work for my dog?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just educating yourself in that way, and stop looking for the negative in the tool, and look for those and educating yourself. Melissa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I had a really good conversation with these clients last night, and we were talking about tools, and they were like, every lesson, what should we buy? After this, what should we buy? And we kind of, it was after a lesson, we were just talking, and I really think now, anytime you think about a tool, contact a trainer. We would all be glad if somebody contacted us about a tool. Like, we'd rather have that then than deal with the problems, but ask, what is this tool used for? When should I use it? What's its purpose? Why? Why is this tool a thing?
Right.
And what should I not do?
Yeah.
Because just thinking about the purpose of why would I use this?
Yeah.
What is the end game?
Yeah.
There should always be an end game.
Right.
Like a Band-Aid solution, not an end game. Nothing's learned from that.
That's good.
So don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And be very blunt about it.
Right.
Because we'd be happy to explain.
Sure. Yeah.
Like if somebody contacted,
an email.
why should I use a head collar?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Right.
let's talk about it.
Yep.
Instead of dealing with a dog that's leash reactive or has a broken neck.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. Nice. Michelle?
Just because this just made me think of it, just because you said that they ask what they can buy after every time, is dog training really doesn't have to be that expensive. I mean,
No.
like, yes, please contact us and talk to us and stuff like that, and we would love to help you. I think if you're talking about money, paying for us is going to be more valuable than going out there and buying prong collars and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I mean, we might have you get those things after a while.
Yeah.
But dog training really does not have to be expensive at all. I was just thinking about the different tools that I've used and stuff. I did scent training with one of my clients, and we didn't go out and buy scent. We used vanilla extract and she had peppermint oil.
Right. Right.
And that was just me, just like she asked to do it, and I was like, what could we use? And we're just sitting in our kitchen, and I was like, do you have these things?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then we used clean towels. Like, we didn't go out and buy anything extra that had anything to do with scent work. Nothing.
Yeah.
That's just where we started. Was
Right.
just doing that. Even if it's just silly and you want to have fun with your dog and teach them to do agility stuff, you don't have to go buy that stuff.
Yeah.
You can make that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember when we were doing it with, like when we started with Rambo, there were times that we would have him like weave through chairs, like the chair, like at the bottoms of chairs and stuff, like just random stuff like that. That it does not have to be expensive.
Yeah.
Like you should be like hiring a professional to help you not have to pay for all of those crazy things.
Right. Yep. I agree completely. Shannon, what advice do you have?
Don't feel embarrassed that if you don't know how to use a tool,
Yeah.
and don't feel like you should know how. Like, you wouldn't go into Home Depot and buy a saw and then expect to like go in your yard and build a shed if you never picked up a saw before.
Right.
And training the dog is the same
Yeah.
way. Just because you see people doing it every day doesn't mean that you know how. And a lot of training has to do with timing. And some people have natural timing and some people don't, and that's okay. Like, everybody can't have perfect timing.
Right.
But that's something you need someone to teach you, because you can't see that yourself.
Yep.
And so don't feel embarrassed or feel like you should know, because it's okay to not know. It's okay to ask for help, and you have to have someone, an external person, to watch you, to watch your timing, to make it be better.
Yeah.
I have to add just one last thing too.
Yeah.
As I was saying this, those tools are out there to help you, but if you cannot be consistent with them, they're not going to help you.
Yeah.
And I will fully admit, I will never put a harness on one of my personal dogs.
Yeah.
Because I will never be consistent about it, because I am too lazy to actually take that extra. I know it only takes 10 extra seconds. I know that.
Right.
But I know I will never be consistent about putting a harness on a dog.
Yeah.
I know I won't.
Right.
So if it just is not part of your lifestyle and you cannot keep it up, there is another way to approach whatever it is that you need to accomplish.
Right. And I like that, Michelle. To wrap this up, we have a online dog training platform that we really go into different tools, and the training videos, we're all using different tools and different things, and our outside the box stuff in there as well. And so it's called more than sit, and we're all in there. We're all, there's videos to help you through it. So even coming back to, it doesn't have to be expensive. We believe that everybody should be training their dog, and we are, yes, when we come into your homes, yes, we're not cheap, but we also will give you 100% of everything that we have, and everything that's in our toolbox, and we're with you through the long haul. I mean, we have clients that their dogs are now 10 years old and they're getting puppies, or all of a sudden the 10-year-old is turning into puppyhood again, and we're having house training issues, and so we're with you through the journey of your dog ownership, but we also have resources to help you continue that journey, and we do talk about tools, and we do talk about all of these things in the pillars. So I would encourage you that if you're listening to this and just feel like, I just don't have the money, and I get it, but there is a way to make it happen, and to work with trainers that you can make it happen some way. And that's really our dream, and our goal is to help everybody be successful with their dogs with the tools that are out there, and to educate them.